Well, good evening, everyone. We are here, it is the hardcore fans, and the reason it's springtime in Oregon is that the sweaters have flowers on them. Right, it's springtime in Oregon. I like that.
I forgot to
like
wear
that.
mine, I'm sorry.
It's not too late next time. All right, this is in fact, March 26, 2025, the Board of County Commissioners meeting for the Clatsop County Board of Commissioners. Commissioner Webb and I are here in person. Commissioner Waku, I see that you're online. Nice to see you. This is in fact at 5 p.m. a work session, an opportunity for board members to discuss issues informally with staff and invited guests. The board does encourage members of the public to attend work sessions to listen to the discussion. There's generally no opportunity for public comment during a work session. Members of the public wishing to address the board are welcome to do so at the board's regularly scheduled meetings, which tonight will be at 6 p.m. So the first item on our agenda is discussing the formal agenda. And Commissioner Webb, I thought I heard that you had a question. I don't know if you want to raise it now or when is the best time to do that?
If I might, Chair Thompson, members of the board. I just wanted to make a note, and I have discussed this individually, but on item 13, staff will be asking that first public hearing be continued to a date certain of April 23rd, 2025. And that's to allow additional time to go through some comments that have been received from the county, from DLCD. And so
within the past 2 days,
Yeah.
so very recent comments.
So I don't know, Commissioner Webb, if you had any questions about that item that you wanted the clear and objective standards item.
Oh, so you want to talk about that now rather than I'm sorry, were you asking that come off the agenda?
No, we're just
You're
gonna
at- could you do
continue
the
it.
continuance?
Yeah, we're gonna continue it to a date certain of April 23rd. I just didn't know if you had any comments about what the basis for the clear and objective standards
Well,
work was, so.
I mean, I have, of course, I just have to warn our planning director that the other plan is, of course, has myriad. When I went through it, I just thought, what's the basis of this? Where did this come from? And I actually tried to look up the law and just couldn't get through on my internet today. But so I don't want to beleaguer it because it's just, I'm very curious about how you went through this. How you said, okay, well, what does DLCD want from us? And this is what we
know that.
got, right? And this is what we've got. And so, right, so it's that process. And I'm sorry, but I haven't been attending planning commission meetings. So I didn't see, I like to hear the arguments at planning commission, because to me, that's where a lot of the good input comes in. But I didn't see this through the thing, so I'm sorry. So I don't want to belabor it. I mean, I'm happy to put it off because maybe I can spend a little bit more time with you understanding the process a little bit better and not wasting
Well,
all of our time.
I think we have a little time, Commissioner, if you wouldn't mind, Gail, just kind of giving just a brief overview of whence this came and how the process went.
Yes, so this came out of legislation that was passed by the legislature in 2023. It's House Bill 3197. And what it did was require counties in their rural residential lands and their rural communities to adopt clear and objective standards for housing. And that's a very broad scope of work. So we took the opportunity as staff to really use it as a thorough code audit. So we probably did more than we were required to by DLCD, but we looked at every single article in the code that may have touched on housing or impacted housing. And so we tried to, first of all, just take out the obvious subjective language, should, might, maybe, may, things like that. And then to try and quantify things where we could quantify things. And we spent trying to just clean up 40 years of piecemeal amendments that have caused a lot of confusion. We are actually restructuring our whole approval process. We're going from 7 different types of approval pathways to just the standard 4, which will make life easier for everyone, clients and staff together.
I was kind of amazed to see that in the code to start with.
Yeah.
When, do we know when that stuff was done?
Some of it goes back to the 1980s when we first adopted. So,
Okay, because I thought a lot of that code compliance, the process was kind of onerous.
yeah, and some of it has just been done before I started by previous directors who implemented a process procedurally in the office, but it was never actually codified into the code. So we're just,
Can't do that's illegal.
yeah, we're just cleaning all that up now
Gone to
and taking care of that.
Salem with a couple of those.
Yeah, so we started the project in December of 2023. We went to the planning commission with our proposed timeline. And then have been working through, we worked through 3 drafts with the planning commission. We did do quarterly updates with the board just to keep, well, you're not bored, but to keep you informed about where we're at in the process, because we do have to complete the project by July 1st of this year. We have to be fully adopted. So we've been working through that. We submitted our PAPA notice on February 4th, and 35 days went by, more than 35 days went by, and then last week we got a call from our North Coast rep for DLCD who said, oh, by the way, we didn't see your notice come through. We're going to have some comments for you because we're going to review it real quick. And so the comments started coming in this Monday, and they're not substantive, but they will take some time to put work into the amendments. And rather than bringing this draft to your board for a first reading and then coming back with all additional changes between first and second reading, it's easier for everyone if we just start clean on April 23rd. So
Absolutely. Okay. Okay, thank you. This was such an incredibly monumental.
it was a big challenge. It took us well over a year.
I mean, I think it's remarkable actually that you did it as quickly as you did. Considering that you've had a couple of other things on your plate in the last couple of years.
Well, we have a great staff and they're very dedicated and hardworking.
Very well led, so.
Well, in the broader context, as I see it, is, you know, the governor says, look, we have a housing problem, we have a homelessness problem. We want to do something about it. And one way to address it is to look at the standards for approval of sorry. Okay. I thought I had them all turned off, but I didn't. Is to look at the standards that are applied for approval. And if they're clear and objective standards, then what we get to do is to have something that seems fair and equitable as well as substance. But maybe you have a different idea.
Oh, no, I have exactly the same idea.
Okay.
The only caution that, and one of the things that, but we've heard from both our county housing committee, that we've been pushing a lot of, oh, you know, the process for approval is so complicated and yada, yada, yada. Well, I'm fortunate enough to have been alive during most of that, those 40 years. And one of the things about code enforcement is that an awful lot of the code issues were put in there for very important reasons. For, you know, preventing fires when construction was happening and being built. We have lots of backup things in our code that are for safety, that are from public safety. I mean, there are so many few houses other than forest fire burns, but you know, houses don't burn down in the United States the way they used to 100 years ago. I mean, I wish I could remember the numbers because they're staggering, absolutely staggering. I mean, when people, you know, now that we judge chimneys and fireplaces much differently than we did 50 years ago. You know, we've done a lot of these so-called hoops that people have to go over are necessary. They're necessary for the public good. And so I don't want us to get too crazy about simplifying things. I want us to always be aware of why that particular aspect is in the code. I think it's always worth going back and remembering why it's there. So I don't want to get too crazy about, oh, let's get crazy. But
That makes sense. I really appreciate your caution. What I'm hearing is that the push to shorten the time on approval, there's a bill to require counties to approve housing in 45 days, permits, applications in 45 days. But my understanding is we're doing what the state building codes tell us to do.
that's right.
So unless they're going to tell us not to do something, how are we going to get everything done? I'm curious about that. I don't want to put you on the spot, but this is the kind of stuff that floats around in my brain. How do we maintain public safety, respond to emergent needs and urgent timelines, and balance all that as the counties, as the implementers of the state laws and rules?
So first I want to separate the bill that's in around now, which is dealing primarily with building codes, not primarily, but with building codes, which is completely separate from what we're working through with the clear and objective standards.
Right.
So there are already timeframes established in ORS that talk about when building permits have to be issued. There are already established timelines. Unless you have a really big project, the projects that we see in our building codes department are primarily single family homes. We see a lot of electrical permits, but we're not seeing the big projects. I think you'll find that building code departments have a much harder time is in cities where you may not have a full-time building official, or your building official has left and you're in the process of hiring one. But I think from the county, and I think that safety from the building codes division, the state building codes division, is always going to be the top priority, the life safety issues. The issues that we're going to work through with the clear and objective standards, luckily don't deal with life safety issues for the most part. We are dealing more with procedures and process and things that people would typically think of as bureaucratic type of activities. So there is a lot of room where we can be more flexible and streamline our processes and use language that's easier for everyone to understand. So that you don't have to have a planning degree to read the zoning code, or that you can hopefully figure it out a little bit yourself. It'll never be 100%, second grade level, because it's just the state planning laws are just not structured that way. There's always going to be some complication to it. The complexity in that.
That's a problem with all of our land use.
But then there is, on the other side, people who really want to have design review, which is, in my mind, goes above and beyond health and safety issues and goes into aesthetics and appearance and that sort of thing, which I think would make this process interesting. I don't know how you reconcile that either.
But luckily the county doesn't have these land reviews, so I didn't have to tackle that.
That's thank you.
But some people would like us to.
Oh, yeah, especially down in your neck of the neighborhood.
Indeed. Well, there is that feeling of, I love my place and I want to protect it. And so there is that refined sensibility about the protection of the place I love. But the county, as you point out, does not have design review. So when we're looking at clear and objective standards, we're not looking at design review.
All right, we'll make sure that the design review is part of the incorporation study, so they make sure that if they want that, that's something that incorporation would certainly take care of.
I think it's important. I think there is an idea that people have expectations and standards, but then it comes down to, and what does it cost and who pays that? And what's the other implications and results. So what we're looking for is a clear unfolding of all of the dimensions of this. So ultimately, it's a positive thing.
Well, can I remind you that we do unfortunately have in unincorporated parts of the county, we have a lot of HOAs,
Mhm.
which are what the reason that planners don't sleep well at night is because of HOAs. I've had to
Okay.
deal with them in several states.
That's not our concern either. No, it's not. No, not mine.
Well, it's something actually that I would love us to be able to address at some point, but not here. This is not, I don't think this. I don't think you need to, I wouldn't put that on top. That was one of the things I wanted to talk about the bill, but
Does that speak to your concerns or your curiosity about this?
well, it's just the overall thing, Commissioner, that in the years, that is during my career, actually, when HOAs in unincorporated areas have become, it's actually worse in other states, because at least our UGBs help a little bit with some of that newer development within the last 30 or 40 years for single family housing. I mean, that's what it's, and so it's a very targeted issue, a very targeted issue.
Contained in a way.
Or out of control. It's just that it is something that is very new in planning. It really is. I don't know. I'll bet there's a date somewhere. Probably in the late 40s when this kind of development started really taking off. And when those who were trying, I mean, that's why what we're seeing in our state is so interesting to me, because it's issues that go back sometimes 60 years in planning. And so it's just interesting to me that we're seeing it. It's this, that we're on the West Coast and housing development has happened very much more here in the last 30 years than it has on the East Coast. So that's right.
Let me check in. Commissioner Wakuya, is there anything that we've said that excites your curiosity or raises any issues or concerns for you?
Sorry, can you hear me? All right. First off, I just want to apologize about not being able to be there in person. I know this isn't convenient for or conducive for our meetings, but no, I'm still listening and learning a lot. You all have been doing this for a long time and are an invaluable source of information. I have opinions about HOAs as well, but none that I'd like to speak at this time. I think the conversation is good with what has happened and transpired, and I have nothing to add.
Thank you. Thank you for making the effort to be here. I know you're dealing with a lot of other things, and I appreciate your stretching to encompass this.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So now, is that enough?
For me, unless you have any other questions.
Well, let me just say about the Department of Land Conservation and Development. The commission itself oversees the department, but we don't micromanage. We supervise the director, and both here and at the Association of Oregon Counties, what I try and do is learn what's happening on the ground and not vote on things that would indicate a bias for something that will come to LCDC. If I fail, I bet somebody will tell me, but that's my intention, is to simply learn, simply to take in information, learn from discussion, and then come to it with an open mind to apply the law at that commission level. So you know that's what I'm trying. If you think I'm faltering, you just nudge me and we'll talk about it.
Well, no, could I add to that? Sure. That the other thing I think that has to be clearly understood, especially by new commissioners, is exactly what the role of the department is versus the board of the department versus LUBA. You know, it's all very distinct responsibilities that have to be learned. And so I think that your commitment, I mean, I've loved it ever since you got on the LCDC board, because it's a learning, there's a lot to learn. There's an enormous amount to learn. And so it's always important to me that what I see the people's often not understanding is the distinction in each of those three entities. And that a lot of people think that the DTC board is LUPA. You know, and they do actually very few, a lot of good policy, overall policy stuff, but no legal decision making. They have no.
Anybody who wants to learn more is welcome to ask questions, but we won't drag you through. Thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, thank you for your time.
Anything else? Okay, thanks for coming here.
That's good.
Amanda, do you want to give us another legislative update? Because things are getting a little focused now, I would say.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Thompson. So as you all know, the first major deadline was on Friday, and that was for posting of work sessions. And so obviously the session has had a lot of bills, and I would say in terms of bills that we're tracking, it probably cut it in half about. So the tracker's been updated to designate the bills that didn't make the cut there. And I can just go through these bills individually unless you had any questions about kind of the process or that deadline.
Please proceed.
Perfect. So one of the two main priority bills, well, both of the priority bills that the county has been really engaged in, did make that cut, and that's the HB 3556, having to do with transient lodging tax. That had been scheduled for a work session on Tuesday, and that got bumped to tomorrow. So that is going to happen at 1 o'clock tomorrow. And then the HOA bill got scheduled for a work session. That's HB 3545, and that is for April 7th. So that's another week, which gives us a little bit of time. We're meeting with some interested parties in the bill as we're working on another draft amendment that would incorporate the county's main concerns in terms of not having public dollars going towards the private expense. And so the fees accruing to the property and then the new owner paying those expenses. So we're looking at kind of drafting that amendment to be more specific to the different parties that are involved. Do you have any questions about either of those bills?
So just to expand on that a little bit, there's been meetings between Amanda and others from staff and CFM and some of these interested parties that are representing HOAs, just to see if we can find some middle ground on the language that can be supported. I think that the legislators who have heard this bill understand what the issues are, which is good. But I think the more we can work with the industry, the better to come to a solution. So we're still working with them, and we'll see where it goes. So.
Well, because they are well-meaning neighbors who've had an unfortunate series of consequences from well-intentioned actions that went awry. And I don't want to negatively impact that HOA because it really is devoted neighbors. On the other hand, I have to honor that everyday citizens in Clatsop County shouldn't be supporting a particular HOA. So I'm grateful for the work that you're doing and hope you can support them to reach a successful resolution.
We're working to that end, so.
Well, how's pardon me, just a minute, how's that TLT thing going? Because, well, that's been like David and Goliath for a long time.
It still is.
Person who.
Well, I think that, I mean, you can go ahead.
Oh, no, I didn't.
But do you have an update for the TLT?
Just that it was scheduled for a work session. It had been scheduled for Tuesday. But at the beginning of the meeting, they noted a few bills that needed to get bumped to the next meeting. And so it'll be tomorrow at 1 o'clock is when they'll have a work session. And the two options that could happen is well, there's three options. Either they could choose to, approve the bill and pass it, and then it would go to the House of Revenue, or House Committee on Revenue, which is a subsequent referral. Or they could choose to, have it passed without recommendation. And so that would still go to that committee. And then if neither of those options happen, then that bill would die at that committee.
So if I might, there is that there's a lot that you would deem predictable in terms of the conversations that are taking place about the bill. Obviously, the industry does not want an expansion of the TLT use. I think it'd be safe to say that the industry considers it kind of industry resources, industry money, and that's why the 70-30 is something that they support so adamantly. You know, our argument has been that if you give at least the high intensity tourism counties more flexibility, it will actually hedge future increases to the rate, because we're not the only highly impacted county that's feeling deep pressure of having our population triple at certain times of the year. And so I think it's a healthy conversation no matter what happens, because it's much more focused right now. I mean, the LOC bill is a 36 county all cities bill. It includes both tourism impacted infrastructure plus public safety. I think just my instincts would tell me that there's going to be a winnowing down of that use, because infrastructure and pumps are large buckets, and I think if the industry was going to support something, it would be limited. That's why our priority has been public safety. The other thing that will likely happen is that right now it's 36 counties, kind of the big end of the funnel. At some point, you might see an effort to reduce that. And I think there's a couple of options. One is to reduce it to recreational counties, which is a HUD definition, which is
statistical reality.
which there's 8 of those counties. Or they could even say, we'll reduce it to those counties that have the highest per capita tourism in the state. And this is using the state's tourist data. There are 4 counties whose tourism per capita is over 100. It's Lincoln, Clatsop, Tillamook, and Curry. And so if they wanted to, they could say any county with a per capita tourism of over 100 gets more flexibility, because then you only have 4 counties. So I think there's going to be a process to get to something that might have a little bit more chance of support, but I think the conversations have been positive and helpful. There's been a lot of cities and counties that have been testifying. Obviously, the Sheriff's Association and our sheriff have been taking leadership roles. And so I think it's good. I'm hoping that we get somewhere, but the industry and everybody knows that we're already poised to do something if they don't do it for us. And so we're still hopeful, but this has been something that's, been a challenge for a long time, since 2003. Yeah, so we will see.
Well, and really,
I don't know, Sheriff, if you have anything to add, but
Sheriff, you want to come up?
sorry to put you on the spot.
No, you're not.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
That was part of my drill about this. I heard all kinds of fabulous comments last week about your testimony, and so I thought there had been the hearing
The hearing did take place.
It was
The
a-
thing that got rescheduled was the work session.
with, okay, because I heard wonderful things, and I actually tried to get a copy of it, because I thought, whoa,
Does
Yeah,
your
I
wife
second that.
fan club now?
Well,
oh, he's got a
I'm sure-
huge fan club. Remember his fan club votes.
I don't know if you have anything to add there.
I don't really have anything to add. It's certainly a work in progress and hopefully we can get this across the finish line in some form.
Good. Commissioner Pakuya, did you have a comment to make?
Oh, I was just seconding what Commissioner Webb stated, which is I heard really good feedback. I just wanted to thank Amanda and the sheriff. I heard nothing but compliments on the testimony. I know there was a lot of other testimony that was provided in opposition, but from what I was able to ascertain, the influence of your positions with the testimony echoed very loudly. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Bravo.
Well, good, because the point is, if the rate has to go up, how does that help the industry? And what we're talking about is a redirection that does, we hope, minimal harm to the industry while still addressing the emerging community needs. I assume you said something like that.
And what I would say is that, and if I might, Commissioner, is that
Please.
we tried to apply kind of this common sense approach to this conversation, which was, we understand that rates could impact tourism. And our goal was to not increase unless we have to. There's so much money in the tourism promotion side that cities, not just cities on the coast, but other cities are having a hard time spending, and they're sitting on fund balances because there's just more that can be spent on those statutory limitations. And so for us to be able to free up that money and just spend it on still tourism impacts, but tourism impacts related to public safety in our case would be important for the stability of the organization, but it would also be good for the industry. And so for us, it was a win-win proposition, but we're fighting some of the headwinds of history and so we'll see how this ultimately comes out, but I think it's a good discussion because we're working hard not to have to increase the rate or to minimally increase the rate. But if we aren't given the flexibility, I also know that we did everything we could to not do it. So, because we put a lot of effort, I'm not sure we put more effort into a legislative concept than we have this one. So
This has been number one, if I could. And the point is, what we're looking is to maximize the positive experience of both the travelers, visitors, and the residents to make this a more livable community for everybody who lives here, who comes here. So we hopefully have a common goal that is still economically supported insofar as possible of the industry. So Commissioner Webb, did you have something else?
Well, one of the questions that I have about the data that's being, I was gonna say thrown around, and I didn't mean that to be pejorative. But Matt and I had a discussion about did we ever come to a number about, because when I'm talking to people on this issue, I always talk about the horseshoe of the highway system in Clatsop County. You and I talked about computing the route, the 30, the 101, of course, is relative, but and 26, especially 30 and 26, of how many miles of those roads are outside of jurisdictions in the county. Did we ever come up with that number? Because what I was saying to Marcus, for instance, was, because I kind of made up a number with him. And I said, just kind of well, I think it's about, 80 miles. And does that means that it's 80 miles of those highways have no coverage other than with volunteer fire departments, and not always with a medical person in it. I mean, so what we're doing is trying to improve services to the people who get in automobile accidents, which is enormous in this county.
Yeah.
Especially on 26 and 30. And so I just would love it if we had those numbers, because I really have found them powerful. I mean, Marcus didn't have an answer for me with that. You know, I mean, I said, you know, we've got a medics, especially now that I'm more aware of how medics is working, you know. And because you were the person who raised this with me, Matt,
Yeah.
that we have to start talking about, we have to start talking about our guests have to get here. And we want it to be, we want them to get here. You know, we want them not to roll their car into the river on 26, as they kind of want to do every weekend.
And if I might say, that's too why the rural fire agencies in the county are such strong partners with us on this initiative, is because, I mean, they feel the strain, as we all know, from the 911 calls that they're getting, and just the volume of calls that they're getting. And so they are strongly supporting these bills also.
And we have all those numbers. Those reports have gotten much better. You know, now that I'm sitting on that committee, the reporting from medics has gotten much better, and has gotten much more intense. And we have better statistics about what happens. I mean, it was just from a story that Matt told me about. You know, we've got a highway, we've got an accident on Route 30, and the closest medics ambulance is on 26.
Happen, yeah.
It can happen.
That's from the sheriff's mouth himself. And so, hey, we need the infrastructure, and that person, you know, who rolled off 26 is of course what people love to roll off of.
Yeah.
But the point is, we need the human infrastructure. When we talk about infrastructure, we need the human infrastructure to bring people. I mean, that's what listening to the sheriff about. I mean, this is about deputies. It's about ambulances. It's about people going to help other people.
Well, and I think part of the first responder system that not everybody always understands is that the first responders are fired, you know, for these accidents. And so depending upon where the accident is and the time for an ambulance to arrive, these oftentimes volunteer fire folks are providing extended care while the ambulance is in transit. And so they're vital to make this whole system work. You know, rural places rely upon these rural fire departments, not surprising. And this isn't just Clatsop County, this is almost everywhere in a rural area. The first responders are going to be there, and the ambulance is going to be blocked. And so that's where I think people need to support the fact that there is a very direct correlation with the volume and tourism. And that's something that we're going to keep at. And, you know, we have written the ordinance would allow the board to decrease the rate if we get some additional flexibility. I mean, again, our goal has never been just to increase it. It's to spend what we're already collecting on the priorities and the impacts of tourism.
Well, and the industry, I think, doesn't feel sufficiently appreciated for the contribution they make. And really, it makes a huge difference. On the other hand, we still say it's inadequate considering the need in rural areas, because I think it's a be there joke. You have to be there to get what it means to be rural. And
well, I mean, I don't want to belabor this too much, but I think that when you look at a community that can have a population of 120,000 plus, but you have an infrastructure of 40,000, that is just a very unique situation, which is why we're number 2 per capita when it comes to tourism impacts. And so, I mean, there's not a direct correlation between what we're generating in TLT revenue right now and what the impacts on our public safety system. So if we get 30% of the TLT, that may only be paying for 5% of the impacts on our public safety system. Even if we got the flexibility that we're asking for, it's still only gonna cover a fraction of what the actual impacts are. So while we do appreciate the 30% flexibility that we have for the post 2003 dollars, and we appreciate the flexibility that we have on the pre-2003 dollars, the total of all that is a small portion of what the impacts are. And so, and I think that's just what the nature of these intensely impacted counties are, is that you can't go from a population of 40 to 120 or 150 and not have it cost a lot of strain, stress, and resources on our public safety system. So
Is this horse played and dead? Well,
I think it's important because, as the sheriff would say too, is, you know, dealing with this is a legacy issue for the safety of our community. And I don't want to overplay that, but I don't want to underplay it. It truly is. Because at some point, if we don't address the impacts, services and service levels will slowly degrade.
well,
So-
and we've got in our business packet tonight an item about the safety study, because we know that driver behavior is more and more an issue. It isn't just the volume of the traffic, it's the behavior of the drivers and not to mention trees falling on people and killing them. That's my
Well,
particular.
the sheriff even had to pull somebody over first. Though, to be able
Yeah,
to-
I did. Yeah, I hadn't written a ticket in many years.
Oh, I hope it was behind the county manager.
Yeah.
I was good. I'd rather be
No.
with it.
You know, just on the public safety side, things to consider too is, I mentioned in my testimony last week that on average, 70% of the calls Cannon Beach Rural Fire Department responds to were not involving a citizen or resident or property owner of the district. And a lot of those come from Ecola State Park, which is not within the fire district and does not come with any funding. And so we, you know, hundreds of thousands of people go to Ecola, but there's no
funding
funding
mechanism.
to help support and take care of the people that you know, have emergencies in the park or fall off a cliff. Last night we responded to one of those, our deputies and fire department, so,
And the Coast Guard.
the Coast Guard, yeah, so, I mean, there's some real expense here.
So we need to put a donation box at Ecola.
Yeah.
Donation.
Have to be a big one.
Well, and the whole idea of unfunded mandates that we talk about at the state.
That's right.
And so,
Feds.
well, the Association of Oregon Counties has a governance and revenue committee, and right now we're just looking at what's going on in the state legislature, but after that, I've got a commitment to look at revenue issues, including the real cost of doing everything. And Commissioner Wakuya, if you have a different experience than I do about the people who should be paying, whether or not they actually are paying, I have some questions about that, because I've seen people who I would say blissfully unaware of the real cost that's associated with their activities or lack of forethought. Is that a moderate way to put it, Sheriff?
So, good.
Okay. Is there
Yeah.
anything else that we need to talk about? Do you have more that you want to say, or?
I just had two other kind of main highlights. One bill on the tracker that we have that's actually made it past both chambers so far, which is kind of exciting. It's HB 2154, and that's the one that makes permanent the county safety corridor program. So that makes that an option for county should they be.
Was that in your?
It wasn't, we have it as a low priority bill, only because it's not like something that the county is actively working on, but it is a one that we were tracking in case that's something that the county is interested in doing in the future.
Yeah, it doesn't really have new safety corridors, it just allows for safety corridors. So now it would be something that the county could do.
Could.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. I thought we were doing it. I thought that got funded by that.
Well, I'm trying to know the act doesn't fund, does ODOT have the money? Because ODOT mean, there's housing and there's ODOT, right? And there's no room for anything else really, the way I look at it in the state legislature at this moment. And when I look at ODOT, the safety corridor requires some ODOT funding.
It does, and I think that we'll learn more from the transportation
Mhm.
safety study too, and
That's,
so,
yeah, that's what I
Mhm.
was hoping would kind of be our opening door to that.
yeah, and
So,
we will see what comes out of the study, and that'll inform.
and hopefully it will. I mean, you know, it's got to coordinate with.
Looking at the data.
There's data and there's money.
Yeah, the money is a different animal, so.
It is.
And then the only other, major one that I just wanted to highlight, HB 5006, and that's the state budget. And that's the one that has the community public hearings that are happening throughout Oregon. And so one is happening locally here at the Liberty Theater in Astoria, from 5 to 7, on Friday. Should anybody be interested? And the co-chairs released, a budget framework, for that policy to kind of create a little bit of context. So I watched kind of the beginning of, last week hearing that they had. I think it was, I can't remember exactly where it was located, but one of the things that they noted was that the framework doesn't preemptively cut any services and it maintains current service levels. However, there aren't enough funds to pay for everything. And
That's what they've been saying all term. So do we have a copy of that? there-
I can send that out to the board.
Could you, I mean, I was
Mhm.
planning on attending that meeting. I was kind of hoping the sheriff would be there too.
I'll be
Yeah.
there.
So it's an opportunity to, either, at least from what I've gathered, is opportunity to provide comment on the budget framework or, to advocate for specific community needs, ensuring that those things are properly funded.
I think that maybe we should talk about that. Can we have a session about what we want to get communicated on Friday? Who'll help with this
So
time?
we have maybe 7 minutes left. We have, I mean, do you have ideas about,
Or should we all meet on Friday morning and talk about it? I mean, I feel this is a really important event. I got out of my sick bed to get well this weekend. So I really, I just think it's an opportunity for us to join the public comment that is happening all over the country. As funding decisions by all levels of government are being made. And so I think it's very important that we, I think this is really important that we have, when we have the two co-sponsors of the whole CLT issue on our side with both our senator and representative. I'd love somebody on Friday to be talking about.
If it would be helpful, I can work on some, talking points that are reflective of the legislative priorities and the county's, highlighting the county's budget concerns, especially if we're working on preparing the county budget.
Yeah,
Absolutely, that would be lovely.
and I think any board member obviously individually can raise issues also, but we can provide what Amanda just referred to.
Exactly, to make sure that we're all saying the same thing and keeping.
I mean, I think a lot of it is, I mean, for me, just from a budgeting perspective, supporting corrections funding, which is in the budget right now, is really important to the county. The ongoing funding for the housing, behavioral health care are all vital as well. And then with some of those things that we've always, and then we know there's no solution to right now, which is the transportation funding piece. And time will tell what happens with that, but. So yeah, we will put something together and then certainly you can individually add to that, but
well,
so.
just in that regard, the surge in mental health fatalities in Clatsop County, is that something that we're competent to speak to, or is that something that, what do you think?
Probably one of the closest bills to that is 2467, which I've been working on today with OSSA, OACP, ODAA. And I'll be submitting testimony and probably testifying tomorrow. that is to clarify what the requirements are for civil commitment. And so hopefully, I don't want to say it'll make it easier to civilly commit someone, but it'll make it more clear what the requirements are. The hope would be to get people treatment before they end up in the criminal justice system, and then having to go through the aid and assist process into the state hospital, which, you know, is a worse outcome for that individual and more of a load on the criminal justice system. Some of the people that have submitted testimonies, like there's a father who was stabbed 13 times by his son, could not get him into treatment. He felt like there was, imminent danger, but didn't meet the thresholds, and this bill will help clarify what those thresholds are.
Is there also some way that we can brag on Friday night about our deflection program?
Possibly. I think that we work with OHSU on that, and they go around the state working with deflection programs, and they kind of share with others. And then Christina, our deflection program coordinator, has been working with Tillman County with their program. I think she's also got some.
As always, you all are
contact
being
with-
leaders statewide.
Yeah,
That's, you know,
so. We're doing pretty good.
I just love us to get that in front of these people. Please.
So this is the lead off session now, right?
No, they've already started.
They started.
This is the second one.
Second.
I think there's,
I think it was black and
yeah, 5 to 7, I can't remember.
Well, if there's a model for effectiveness, I hope we could use it. So whatever you can get out, whatever you're doing.
Yeah, Amanda can get something out to you tomorrow, so.
she'll do great. She's great at that.
Commissioner Walker, is there anything else you'd like to add to this? No, you're
Muted.
muted.
I said, no, not, I'm good right now. Thank you. I appreciate it. Sorry.
All right. Well, then let's call that sobering call to action enough, and we'll take a brief break and we'll resume at 6 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, you're working on written testimony or verbal testimony for this? Okay.
For 2467.
Yeah. Looks like the hearing is next week.
So I'm probably gonna submit my own written testimony, and then I'll.
You didn't have anything
And then
on
I'll
the agenda.
hear for OSSA and or CP.
No.
Good evening, everyone. The Board of Commissioners, as the governing body of Clatsop County, all county service districts for which this body so acts, and as the Clatsop County Local Contract Review Board is now meeting in regular session, we'll begin first with a flag salute, please. Thank you. Clerk of the board, would you conduct the roll call, please?
Yes, Chair Quila is excused, and Vice Chair Banks,
Is excused.
Commissioner Wakua,
Here.
Commissioner Webb. Here. Commissioner Thompson.
I'm here. Well, thank you. We do have a quorum. We're happy about that. We have now the item of the agenda approval. Commissioner Webb, do you want to make a motion to approve that agenda?
Yes. I move that we approve the agenda, as put forward this evening.
Thank you. Commissioner
I second.
Wakuya?
I
And
second.
a second. All those in favor then, please say aye.
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 We do have an agenda then. We have a couple of proclamations today. Item number 3 is a Tsunami Awareness Week proclamation. It's on 3 of our agenda. But first, I want to call out Charlene Larson, because I see, Charlene, that you're sitting in the audience, and for me, you're an icon for community preparedness, community awareness, community responsiveness. And I think one of the reasons that we're able to move forward as a county is because of your continuing devotion to this cause over all the years. So I just want to start out with that gold star for you. Thank you for your service. All right. So could I have a motion then, please, to approve the action, the resolution and order proclaiming March 24 through 30 to be National Tsunami Awareness Week? Commissioner Webb?
Yes. I move that we approve the resolution and order proclaiming March 24th through 30th, 2025, to be National Tsunami Awareness Week, and authorize the chair to read, then sign the proclamation.
I second.
Thank you.
kiddo.
Second. Then, and, all right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. Jen, are you going to come up and talk to us about this?
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for considering the proclamation. My name is Jen Munson, Clatsop County Emergency Management Community Engagement Coordinator, and this is one of our favorite volunteers, the icon. So mentioned, Charlene Larson. Charlene's going to speak in a few moments about her story and what brings her into this work. I should start by saying Tsunami Awareness Week began in 2008 in recognition of the 1964 Alaska earthquake and the tsunami that followed. And of course, this devastating event reminds us of the importance of preparedness. And in fact, even a few months ago, on December 5th, the Southern Oregon coast observed a tsunami warning. So we have this reminder in place consistently that Oregonians, and specifically those on the North Coast, must be prepared. And we fortunately have awesome volunteers like Charlene Larson, who does a lot of engagement work in the community at Sunday markets and our readiness fairs. And so I brought Charlene in today. I wondered if you could speak to us about your story and what brings you conviction about your.
It's an interesting little tidbit in my early life. Maybe I was 20 or 21 in 1964, and sitting on Broadway in Seaside in my fancy Oldsmobile Cutlass, looking with my girlfriend, looking for boys who were dragging the gut in Seaside. So that's what we called it. It was our entertainment. And a young officer from the Seaside Police Department came up to us, rapped on the window and said, "Ladies, you need to get out of here. There's a tsunami coming. And this is not a false alarm. This is the real thing." And so both of us who lived on 7th Avenue, just off of North Roosevelt in Seaside, rushed home, convinced our parents and my brother that it was not a false alarm, which we had had many of kind of running up to that time, and we needed to get out. And at 20 or 21 years old, they listened to me, which was, you know, kind of interesting. And everyone got in our car. So getting in your car to escape is probably not the best thing you can do, but it was what we knew at the time. And I put all of my clothes in my car and my cat. My brother put all of his clothes in his car and the dog. My parents, I'm not sure what they took with them. They just took off, and they were headed to Crown Camp, which on North Roosevelt, you go north and you go across the bridge, across the river there, and then you go down onto Lewis and Clark Road and go up to Crown Camp. They made it through. My brother was ahead of me. He didn't quite make it because the tsunami hit the bridge and a log came over the top of the bridge and hit the wheel of his car, his little Plymouth vehicle. We both floated across the bridge and were able to still navigate and go down onto Lewis and Clark Road and up to Crown Camp. And that's where we spent the night. Now, Crown Camp at that time was not a area where you gathered, except everybody did gather, but there was no opening up of the office or any of the facilities there to provide for survivors. And we listened to the radio, which was in Astoria, and there was nothing said about a tsunami. But we turned the car off because we didn't know whether we'd have to evacuate again to higher ground. We lost our parents. We didn't know where they had gone. And then you are there all night in your car. The only thing we did not pack was any food or water. You know, so preparedness in that time and in that age was not something that you really thought a whole lot about. So my antidote to that was, if we had to stay very long, who was going to go first, the cat or the dog, you know, for provisions. So that was.
But they survived.
They survived, yes, they did survive, and we did too. And because I had all my clothes, I could go to work in Astoria that next morning when they sounded the all clear, and was perfectly dressed, but just a little bit tired from having been up at Crown Camp all night. So in the purpose of the little story that Jen seems to like was preparedness is so important. Preparedness in our time now of the possibility of becoming isolated from each other in the event of a tsunami. And being prepared for the big things and the little things, that then you are better prepared to help your neighbors through a disaster. So it's important to me to know that this is Awareness Week and that you are making a proclamation that centers on that, And the more information that we can get out to our citizens in Clatsop County on preparedness is very important. That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Thank you. Thank you. Jen, did you have more you wanted to say?
No, thank you for considering the proclamation, and many thanks to the iconic Eileen Larson. Thank you very
Really,
much.
thank you again. Well, we've authorized the reading and the signing of this proclamation, so we've heard the stories that explain its relevance. Let's go ahead. In the matter of proclaiming March 24 through 30, 2025 to be National Tsunami Preparedness Week, a resolution in order. Whereas National Tsunami Preparedness Week is a nationwide coordinated effort sponsored by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, each March to encourage Americans to prepare for tsunamis. And whereas this year marks the 61st anniversary of the Great Alaska Earthquake and tsunami, which caused tremendous damage and a loss of life on the Oregon coast, and whereas a major earthquake associated with the Cascadia subduction zone, which generated strong ground shaking and a destructive tsunami, was last recorded in the year 1700 and has an average recurrence of every 300 years. And whereas the Emergency Management Division mission is to plan for catastrophic disaster and raise awareness around tsunami preparedness procedures, and whereas investing in the preparedness of individuals, families, businesses, homes, and local communities can and does save lives and property and lessens the impact of a disaster such as an earthquake and tsunami. And whereas this event aims to increase public awareness concerning the importance of disaster preparation and to persuade individuals to take action. Now, therefore, be it hereby resolved that Clatsop County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim March 24 through 30, 2025 as National Tsunami Preparedness Week in Clatsop County, and invites all community members to join in this observance by encouraging all citizens and businesses to develop their own emergency preparedness plan and work together toward creating a more prepared society. Dated this 26th day of March, 2025, the Board of County Commissioners for Clatsop County, Oregon. Isn't that inspiring? I'm glad. All right. So the next item on the agenda is number 4, the Child Abuse Prevention Month Proclamation. Do we have Nikisha Womble here from CASA? No. County Manager?
Chair Thompson, members of the board, since 1983, a presidential proclamation has designated April as National Child Abuse Prevention Month. Observing Child Abuse Prevention Month allows us to raise awareness of the severity of this issue and to arm citizens with tools to help prevent abuse from happening. The requested action for this item is to approve resolution order proclaiming April 2025 as Child Abuse Prevention Month and authorize the chair to read then sign the proclamation.
Thank you, County Manager. Commissioner Webb?
Would you like a motion or?
I would like a motion.
I move that the Board of Commissioners approves the resolution and order proclaiming April 2025 as Child Abuse Prevention Month and authorize the chair to read then sign the proclamation.
Commissioner Huakua?
I second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. All right, that motion passes. Let's go forward then. In the matter of proclaiming the period from April 1st, 2025 through April 30, 2025 to be Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas child abuse and neglect is a serious problem affecting every segment of our community, and finding solutions requires input and action from everyone. And whereas every child is precious and deserves to grow up in a healthy, safe, nurturing environment, free from the damages and harmful effects of child abuse and neglect. And whereas our children are the embodiment of dreams and aspirations for the future, and as such are the future leaders, business owners, and community of Clatsop County, Oregon. And whereas child abuse can have long-term psychological, emotional, and physical effects that have lasting consequences for victims of abuse. And whereas child abuse prevention succeeds through partnerships among parents, child welfare agencies, mental and physical health care providers, schools, law enforcement agencies, faith-based organizations, businesses, and community members by fostering loving, supportive, and violence-free homes. And whereas we will continue to identify the risk factors that lead to child abuse and neglect, and by doing so, we will ensure that our children are safe and secure. And whereas we acknowledge that we must work together as a community to increase awareness about child abuse and contribute to promoting the social and emotional well-being of children and families in a safe, stable, and nurturing environment. And whereas prevention remains the best defense for our children and our families. Now therefore, be it hereby resolved that the Clatsop County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim April 2025 as Child Abuse Prevention Month in Clatsop County, and calls upon all community members and local agencies to increase their engagement in efforts to effectively prevent, recognize, and respond to child abuse. Dated this 26th day of March 2025. Hear, hear. Hear, hear. All right, the next item on the agenda then is business from the public. Charlene, did you want to say anything else about tsunami awareness, or have you had your say? Thank you. You're welcome. We're glad to have you here. All right, we have next the consent calendar. It's items 5 through 11 on our agenda. Does anyone have any questions or concerns about any item on the consent calendar? No? No? Look for a motion then to approve the consent calendar as provided.
Okay. I move that we approve the consent calendar as presented on the agenda.
I second.
Thank you, sir. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Good, good. And I'm glad to know we're going to have new trucks. Thank you, sir. All right, Commissioner Liaison reports. Commissioner Huakua, did you want to add anything to our Commissioner Liaison reports? Did you have things to report?
I do actually. So on April 1st, I'll be attending the Property Value Appeals Board. That's going to be my first interaction with the Appeals Board. I've already completed the modules, and so I look forward to reporting back following April 1st. In regards to my other liaison assignment with CEDAR, which is Clatsop Economic Development Resources, we did have a meeting on March 18th, which I attended at the golf course, and I really enjoyed it. It was my first liaison assignment that I've been able to attend, and it was interesting to see all the different people come together that are interested in the development of Clatsop County and its progression. We did a financial review that was provided by Kevin Liardi. Sorry, I'm mispronouncing his name. Liardi. Then Pacific Power did a very nice presentation. There was a transfer of the CEDAR board seat from Alyssa Dunlap over to Kevin Freeman. And he gave a really great presentation, basically explaining how they're working on future reliability projects. They are currently working with Tillamook PUD to have alternative power in case of emergencies, and speaking of the emergency plans. We also had some conversations about things that they're doing to help prevent downtimes during some storms, like putting in tree wires that will help with branches and trees coming down on powers are a little bit more sturdy. So it was neat to see the interventions that they're doing to help protect our county, as well as get the power grids back up that much quicker. And other than that, there were just general updates and roundtable discussions.
Very interesting, helpful information. It's reassuring to hear about the steps taken to ensure the supply of electricity. It's important. Commissioner Webb.
Well, I have several items. One of them is that I don't think we've talked yet about the fact that that CREST, Columbia River Estuary team, is experiencing its 50th anniversary. And actually it was one day last week. There are a number of very exciting projects going on from CREST. And I would love, there's a great project going on at the Lewis and Clark project, at the campground. I'd like to maybe ask CREST to offer an opportunity for perhaps the county commission board to take a special project, a little tutorial, because there are a number of different federal programs going into it. And CREST is doing, as CREST is also doing, the estuaries and other goal components of our comprehensive plan. And so that's going to be coming to us very soon. And so it would be really cool to be able to visit some of these projects that are going on, so people, I think, can understand a little bit more. There have been a lot of the watershed alliances in the county are really growing up a lot. Mechanicum has now become very active. We have a number of them that maybe we should take a look at as we look, because most of them all are estuaries, or have estuaries at the end. So there's that, and there are going to be some celebrations for the 50th anniversary, and I'll let you all know as soon as those are dated and et cetera. The other big thing I've spent a lot of time on is the issue that in Congress, the largest workforce funding opportunity, which is the Workforce Innovation Act, WIOA, is up for renewal this year. And because of the chaos that's going on in Congress, it's going nowhere. And it's very alarming, because there are, as with many federal programs, there are a lot of streams of money that come down to the Workforce Development Program, and so it's not as large and robust and focused as a lot of other programs are. And so it's always, I've been working in workforce development for almost 50 years, and every time that it has reauthorization in Congress, it takes a couple of years to get it done, because there are so many issues at interest that are that everybody's concerned with. And right now, workforce development providers across the country are nervous because the feds are taking a chunk and then another chunk from another program. And so this is all just, it has thrown the reauthorization of WIOA into complete. And I'm planning to be in Washington actually in about 6 weeks to probably do some work with both of our senators who are being vocal about this program. So meanwhile, there is another thing that I'd like to work on with Teresa, and that is that there was there was I don't know how many of you are familiar with the OPB broadcast at noon every day called Think Out Loud. And they had one of the staff people from the Northwest Oregon Works program give a presentation on, he's the maritime liaison, but basically he's responsible for spending the state money in our region that the 23 legislature moved for increasing worker readiness in the maritime industry. And we have gotten several good projects in Clatsop County from that. So I'm going to see if I can get it was only about a 20-minute presentation. I'm going to try to contact OPB and see if we can because it was really interesting. It was really cool and a much better presentation to you all than I could make about this wonderful program. So we'll see if we can get it on board.
Well, thank you, because a prepared workforce is an essential part of economic development. So,
Step number one.
so we'll see how that goes. Okay, Charlene. You see this? This is my certification. I took training. It was 58 modules that took me 6 hours to do online to get ready for the in-person training for CPR and first aid that will happen this Saturday. So I've done the look at the videos and answer the questions part. Now comes the part when you actually look at it and see if you can apply it or if you just freeze. I'm not sure what'll happen, but I'm looking forward to that. Another thing that I participated in last week was the Land Conservation and Development Commission has usually 5 hearings, 2-day hearings every year. Part of what we did this last week was to have Donna Silverberg work with us to do a facilitated training. And we talked about what makes a best team, and I've got 34 elements. I'm not going to read them here for you tonight, but if you're curious about what we said made for a good team, I'm hoping to bring some of that home to Clatsop County. And because, you know, you were so enthusiastic, I really appreciated that. She's really renowned as a leader, and she used to work with high conflict agencies like natural resource agencies under Governor Kitzhaber's first, Kitzhaber 1, they say. So the point is, as Commissioner Webb points out, there's chaos, there's conflict. What we're looking to do is to reset and to be able to, I would say, stand with flexibility and grace in our common humanity so that we can overcome inevitable glitches that'll happen because we're all human, right? Unless you're some angel, because I'm not. I make mistakes. So I'm going to go forward and use this training and others to have the capacity to learn something new and wonderful every day. I've been appearing in front of some legislators to do testifying, but you know that's not something I need to report on right now because we have a much more robust county infrastructure among both staff and commissioners to testify in front of the legislature. I think that's a very positive development. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the work of staff and commissioners that have that united front that should do good work for Clatsop County. In a few weeks, I'm going to go with the Deputy Director of the Land Conservation and Development Commission on an international liaison. We're going to drive to Warm Springs and meet with the tribes. Well, I'm the Goal 5 Rules Advisory Committee liaison from the board. We're talking about cultural artifacts and cultural landscapes, which means something to planners, but for most people it doesn't necessarily mean a lot. We're looking at how to integrate current day property rights with, I would say, indigenous traditions that go back 20,000 years. So it's very interesting work to look at how to resolve those kinds of conflicts too. I know you want to hear about this. So that's my report. I have some interesting work to do that will help, I think, enrich what we're able to do here together. That's my report. County Manager.
Chair Thompson, members of the board, obviously legislative activities and budget activities are taking the bulk of our time as staff right now. I also want to thank the board for the support that they're giving through the legislative process. We've been very active this year, and we're still going to remain active as we see if some priority bills make progress through the process. It is spring break, so I want to thank all the staff that are here today. And I want to thank the staff that are doing double duty as we have a number of folks that are with their families enjoying some much earned vacation. And that's really all that I have right now.
Thank you. The next item is item 12 on our agenda. It's page 90 of our board packet. It is the short-term rental application fee revision. And Gail Henriksen, our Community Development Director, is here to speak to us today.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. Staff is requesting to continue the item to April 23rd. We have had a couple of continuances on this item so far, but we've completed a fee survey, and we would like the opportunity to discuss those findings with your board. And we do have the item scheduled for a work session on April 9th. And then depending upon your input at the April 9th work session, then we would either bring it forward again for a final vote on April 23rd or continue to refine it. So we are requesting a continuance to April 23rd. Thank you.
Thank you. That makes sense to me that we do that. Commissioner Webb, that's agreeable to you. Commissioner Wakua, is that agreeable with you as well? You're muted, sir.
There you go. Now you're on.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Good.
All right. I just said before I do say anything, I know we've said this before, but I would like to publicly disclose that I have a potential conflict of interest in this item, as I do manage an STR within Clatsop County. I have discussed this potential conflict with County Counsel, and he has advised me that this conflict would not preclude me from participating in the discussion or voting on this topic. So with that, yes, I am amenable to that suggestion.
Commissioner Wakua, I really appreciate your rigorous attention to your ethical declarations of your conflict of interest. That really means a lot to me. Thanks for doing that. We're agreeable. Which takes us to the next item on our agenda, which is also involves Director Henriksen. This is in fact, oh my goodness, here we go. This is a long script for the public hearing.
It is very long.
You want a motion?
Yeah.
You want a motion?
Yeah.
Please. We'll give you a you'll make a motion, won't you? Okay.
I hope I got all that right.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
I move that the Board of Commissioners continue this item to the April 23rd, 2025 Board of Commissioners regular meeting.
I second that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the motion has been made and seconded to continue this item to the April 23rd, 2025 Board of Commissioners regular meeting. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right. So we are going to defer the short-term rental application fee revision that is on page 90 of our board packet until the April 23, 2025 Board of County Commissioners meeting.
Okay, thank you.
There.
May I ask a
Properly done.
question?
Certainly.
Actually, this would be directed at Ms. Henderson. I was reviewing this as much as I could. As we noted, this is a very extensive packet with a lot of changes. There was one, and just maybe, I don't know if it was an inconsistency, but it was on page 100 regarding the bed and breakfast facility, and there was a struck line item of 5 nights, but I don't see anything in blue indicating that it was replaced with something else. I was just a small detail I noted.
Okay. So I think, Commissioner Wakua, I think you're on the next item. So just 1 second, please.
Oh, I apologize. I jumped topics.
No, that's okay. If it's okay with the board, we'll move just ahead into that. We are going to be requesting that this item be continued as well to April 23rd. And that's because we have gotten some comments back from the Department of Land Conservation and Development. But unfortunately, the comments weren't submitted to us and received until this week. And so we won't have time to incorporate them. And rather than bringing back a bunch of changes between your first and second reading, we will just be asking that the first hearing be continued to April 23rd. But more specifically to your question regarding bed and breakfast, which oh, that's a very specific. Okay, so the definition that you're looking at is for boarding house. And it's just to clarify that a bed and breakfast is not considered a boarding house. So a boarding house would be somewhere where you have long-term people who are staying with you in your home. Think of the old-fashioned boarding houses where the widow would take in people to live in the house. That's what we're trying to clarify. So bed and breakfast has its own definition and its own set of ordinances. This is just to clarify that a boarding house is not a motel, a restaurant, a hotel, or a bed and breakfast. Does that make sense?
Oh, it's not a bed and breakfast.
Maybe we're not looking at the same thing. It was on page 100 where it says having no more than 5 sleeping rooms, and the 5 is crossed through, but there's nothing in lieu of the 5.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the page 100 that Teresa gave me, and it's not there.
Oh, okay. Maybe.
Oh, I see.
It's
I
okay.
see.
I can email you about it. I was just curious.
Oh,
Maybe a mute.
yeah. So we are. So you. I see what you're looking. Oh no, we're not crossing out or changing the 5. What we're doing is crossing out the spelled out number 5 and the parentheses, but the actual physical number 5 remains. So it's still limited to 5 rooms. Yeah,
understood.
I see what you're looking at. Sorry.
Yeah, just a question. Thank you.
Could we just move to continue this, or do we want to continue a discussion?
Completely at your board's discretion.
So let's, Commissioner Wakua, I think you probably have a lot of questions, but what I'd like to do, if you're agreeable, or maybe not, what I'd like to do now, if you're agreeable, is to accept a motion from Commissioner Webb to continue this item until, do you want to read that, Commissioner Webb?
Well, once again, it's to April 23rd.
Correct.
I would like to mention, though, that, I mean, I've already spoken to Ms. Hendrickson about this. You can waded through this document pretty carefully. And I have a lot of questions about it. And so, as Ms. Hendrickson said, we're going to have a work session to discuss. So I think if we're going to do that, let's just go ahead and have maybe put in the motion the work session.
So we actually had not scheduled this for a work session. We've been on, the work session was in relationship to the STR fee increase. And so if your board would like to have a work session, we can schedule that, but we've been giving quarterly updates to your board, and we do have to have this completed by July 1st of this year. So if your board would like to have a work session, we can work with the county manager to see if we can schedule that.
May we please do that? because that is, this is a phenomenal rewrite to our code.
Chair Thompson, members of the board, we can put a work session in, on the 23rd, even before the regular meeting, so.
Okay,
So,
and that'll give you some time then to digest the LCD comments and all that. So I think this is a huge thing. And, are we gonna have any, oh, of course, we're gonna have public hearings, but the public hearing is gonna be done not separate from a committee meeting, from a board meeting.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you said, Commissioner Webb.
To the regular session and during the
Right, I mean, that's just what I'm saying. It's
same day, April 23rd.
It's the same, so it's just the same date.
it's just,
Fine.
Give me the
That's
motion.
fine. That will,
Make the motion?
okay, this is it. Don't we need to have the hearing, because we haven't done,
so we're just gonna continue the first public hearing, so it will be just to continue the first public hearing to April 23rd.
okay. Okay, I moved, what am I citing in terms of what's moving? I mean, it's agenda item,
It would,
ordinance 25-02.
correct, yes, the first reading of ordinance 2502.
Okay, so I move to continue the first public hearing on 25-02 to the April 23rd, 2025 regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners.
Perfect.
I second.
And there's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. And I apologize for any confusion. I think I had a little delay when I jumped topics.
Thank you.
Well then, so if you came for a lot of contentious issues tonight, I'm sorry, we're going to put them all off till April 23rd, and we'll talk about them then, first in the work session and then in the regular session. So if you're interested, you're welcome to make your comments known beforehand in writing, or show up to testify, or be virtual to testify. But these items are moving forward for a later consideration. Is there anything else for the good of the order? Commissioner Huakua, anything for the good of the order? No? County Manager? Thank you kindly for coming tonight. This meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.